You ever feel like you're following a map to happiness, but the destination just keeps moving? It's a super frustrating feeling, right? Well, what if I told you it's not your fault? What if the map itself, the whole mindset we've been given about how to live a happy life, is just wrong? Okay, let's really dive into this and try to sketch out a new blueprint. And that's not just me saying that. That pretty blunt statement comes from Harvard professor Dr. Arthur Brooks. He argues that the fundamental way our culture teaches us to go after satisfaction is completely backward. It's a core misunderstanding that has millions of us chasing these horizons that don't even exist, all because our basic model is flawed from the get-go. So if our whole operating system for happiness is broken, what's the upgrade? That's the huge question we're going to tackle here. We're going to deconstruct the myths we've all been sold, dig into some pretty fascinating philosophy and neuroscience, and then, piece by piece, build a new, more resilient mindset for genuine well-being. All right, first things first, let's put a name to the problem. What is this default mindset? This wrong model of happiness that so many of us have downloaded without even realizing it? This is pretty much the blueprint we're handed from day one, isn't it? It's a simple, straight-line equation. Pile up achievements, money, and respect, and a happy life will be waiting for you at the finish line. We chase it, we check all the boxes, but that deep, real satisfaction, it often stays just out of reach. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because this gives us a critical insight into our flawed thinking. Happiness and unhappiness are not two ends of the same stick. They're actually processed in different parts of the brain. Think of them like two separate dials on a stereo. Money is fantastic at turning down the unhappiness dial. It fixes the car, it pays the dentist, but it's a terrible tool for turning up the happiness dial. Our big mistake is thinking that just because we're getting relief from misery, that automatically equals the presence of joy. It just doesn't work that way. To really get this, we've got to go a layer deeper into the very nature of pleasure and pain. And for that, we're going to turn to philosophy, starting with a view that, I'll admit, sounds kind of pessimistic at first, but is actually incredibly freeing once you get it. So this 19th century philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, he proposed a pretty radical mindset shift. He basically said that life's default setting is suffering, a constant state of wanting something, needing something, or just being bored. And what we call happiness, he claimed, is just that brief, temporary quiet you feel when one of those pains is removed. You don't get pleasure from eating, you get relief from the pain of hunger. And this single number just perfectly illustrates Schopenhauer's whole point. If suffering, that constant craving and desire, is a negative number, let's say -5, then the absolute best that this kind of happiness can ever be is just a return to zero. It's not a positive gain, it's just neutralizing a negative. You're just getting back to baseline, and then, the whole cycle of wanting starts right back up again. Now, on the other hand, the philosopher Immanuel Kant offered a definition that feels a lot more intuitive. Happiness is simply getting what you want. When your reality perfectly matches what you desire, boom, you're happy. Seems simple enough, right? The mindset is, figure out what you want, then go get it. But here's the catch that Kant himself pointed out. As humans, we can't possibly know the ultimate consequences of our desires. That promotion you want so badly today might bring you total misery tomorrow. He put it perfectly. Happiness is not an ideal of reason, but of imagination. Our desires are often just total guesswork. And get this, modern neuroscience completely backs this up. It turns out our brains have two separate systems. The wanting system is fueled by dopamine. It's the craving, the motivation. That's the Schopenhauer-style suffering. The liking system is the actual pleasure you feel when you get the thing. The huge point here is that our default mindset keeps us stuck on the wanting treadmill, a constant state of deficit, while we only get these brief little moments in the liking state. Okay, so if chasing destinations and trying to satisfy our imaginary desires is a broken model, where do we go from here? Let's pivot to a radically different perspective from the philosopher Albert Camus and see how this can build an entirely new mindset. So Camus uses this ancient Greek myth of Sisyphus to explain the human condition. Sisyphus is punished by the gods with a task that is, let's be honest, completely meaningless and absurd. For all of eternity, he has to push a giant boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll right back down every single time. I mean, just imagine that cycle. The immense strain of pushing it up, that fleeting moment at the very top, the absolute defeat of watching it fall, and then that long, silent walk back down to start all over again. It's the ultimate picture of a pointless struggle, a life with no finish line, no final reward. And then, Camus just drops this stunning, world-tilting conclusion. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy? How in the world is that possible? Because in the moment he watches the boulder roll away, fully conscious of his fate, he's free. He is greater than his rock. He adopts a mindset where the meaning isn't waiting for him at the top of the hill. It's found in the struggle itself. This right here is the heart of the new blueprint. Happiness isn't a destination we arrive at. It's not about the absence of effort. It is the meaning we create inside the effort. It's the mindset of the carpenter who finds joy in the grain of the wood, not just in the finished cabinet. The joy is in the doing, not in the having done. Okay, this all sounds really profound, but how do we actually do it? How do we become Sisyphus, happy with our own personal boulder? Let's get practical and talk about how to actually build this mindset. Camus says we rebel against a meaningless universe, not by finding some pre-packaged meaning out there, but by creating it ourselves. We build this mindset by fully engaging with our lives, through our passions, our creativity, by just being present in the moment, and most importantly, by consciously choosing what we stand for. And this brings us right back to the work of modern thinkers like Dr. Brooks. The practical path to building a meaningful life really comes down to this three-step process. First, do the hard internal work to figure out what you truly value. Then, be able to state it clearly. And finally, and this is the big one, align your daily actions with those values. This is where authentic satisfaction lives. Neuroscience actually has a word for the feeling this creates: agency. It's that sense that you are the author of your own life. It's the engine of all real internal motivation. When you live by your chosen values, you're exercising agency. And that, not some external reward, is the source of deep, lasting satisfaction. So let's bring all of this together with one final and I think really profound mindset shift that completely reframes the entire goal of a good life. For so long, so many of us have been operating with the wrong question. This pursuit of happiness as some external thing you have to catch is a fool's errand. Kant suggests a much more powerful question to guide our lives. What actions, what way of being will make me worthy of happiness? And this just perfectly illustrates the ultimate mindset shift. The goal isn't to feel a certain way. The goal is to be a certain way, to live with integrity, with purpose and virtue, all according to your own chosen values. The focus moves from an external outcome to your internal character. So I'll just leave you with this. What if you just gave up the exhausting chase for the feeling of happiness? What if, instead, you adopted this new mindset and you poured all of that energy into becoming a person you genuinely admire? What if you focused on building a life that, by your own standards, was truly worthy of joy? What would that look like for you?